Greetings, viewers and listeners. This is David Adler from Jazz Times. It's just after Christmas 2024, and we're closing in on the new year and reflecting back on the year that was. Among the people we lost in the jazz community was, of course, the great Roy Haynes, drummer extraordinaire, active as a band leader into his 90s, and left us at the grand old age of 99. There was an outpouring, of course, of love for Roy after his death on November 12th. Many tributes published. Today, in this year-end roundtable, we're going to shine some additional light on Roy and all that he gave us. But first, a quick story. First time I saw Roy Haynes live was in 1987 at Berkeley on a double bill with the great drummer Alan Dawson, an experience that left a huge impression on me and I'm sure many other students there. The band was Ralph Moore on tenor sax, David Kikoski on piano, and Ed Howard on bass. And I'm thrilled to welcome, we hope that Ralph Moore will join us in a moment, but we have David Kikoski and Ed Howard here. I'm thrilled to welcome them to the bandstand, or rather the Zoom call. Thank you, gentlemen, so much for taking the time to join us and reflect on Roy and reminisce about his contributions and also what he gave you as musicians. Because I was going through the discography and I saw like late 70s, he was doing some stuff for the Galaxy label, and it didn't seem like there was a band together. It was like he was kind of getting people into the studio. Um, and so, I mean, I'm kind of thinking of the band with you guys with True or False was the record you recorded. And that like the first Fountain of Youth band because like that was kind of Roy's concept going forward.
Well, the phrase "fountain of youth" that came a lot later.
Yeah.
He was kind of searching me when I joined the band in '82. It was kind of a hodgepodge. Ralph was at the rehearsal I first went to. And then Ed Jackson was actually the first saxophone player on the gig with a guitar player. So he used guitar for a few years. Then Roy found Dave working with the drummer right now,
Lester Merle.
Lester
Lester
Merle,
Merle.
Oh
and
yeah.
he had that to me, and he brought Dave on board. And Ralph I'd met earlier. I think Ralph had played with Roy earlier and then did not for a while, and then came back. And then when the three of us all got together, that was kind of his locked and loaded band moving forward. And,
Hmm.
86, 80, end of 85, 86 is when we started really, I think, gelling and being tight and getting to more of a band sound and trying to emulate what he was offering to us, like his catchphrases, things that he would want. He was very, he really wanted you to create. He really wanted you to be yourself. But he did have some ideas about, one of his phrases was before we played, say, okay, crisp, clear, in the pocket, and listen to each other. This was his thing because he would always play the melody on the drums. So that
Mm.
80s time was pretty a time where we all came together and tried to develop the sound that we eventually got to in 80, 80, 86 and 87. Like when we came to Berkeley, that band was we were chugging, we were moving. I mean, the band was really tight then, and
The opportunity to play with a drummer who had played with Bird, who had played with Coltrane, who had played with Lester Young. I mean, like the list goes on. I'm sure it came through every moment that you played with him. I don't know if you can pinpoint anything or anything he said or just any kind of a general vibe that he gave that just let you know that you were playing with someone like that every time.
Yeah, well, he was always. I mean, for me, it was such a thrill because I was very much into Monk. I mean, I was getting into trying to study the music of Monk and Bird and Chick Corea and Coltrane and Bud Powell
Bud
and
Powell, I
and
forgot to
he
mention.
played and he played with all of them.
Yep.
So as I was, so when I first went out to his house, um, this is maybe a few months before I met Ed at the Blue Note. But when I went, he had these original charts of, like, for example, I remember seeing Chick Corea's original manuscript. There were no emails and
Yeah.
even faxes or any of that stuff then. So it was Chick Corea used to send charts to Roy in the mail, the old-fashioned way. So it was actual. Roy even said, I said, "Can I make a copy of this?" And he was like, "No, no, this is original." So I had to like jot it down on a little napkin or something. It was a whole different world back then. But I remember he had charts of Trinkle Tinkle, the Monk tune, which I was working on anyway. And then he had some of Chick's more obscure tunes like Psalm and
Sure.
Mirror Mirror, which are songs that I was learning off of, they weren't even recorded yet, but I was learning them off of radio shows of Chick Corea. And so it was all the stuff I was studying. Then when I go out to Roy's house, obviously it was such a thrill to play with someone who played with all my idols and who was one of my idols. I said, who's in your band? When we first met, he said, Ralph Moore. And I said, oh, well, Ralph and I are friends from Berkeley. So you put two and two together. And then then Ed came and sat in with us at the Blue Note a few months later. And it really gelled immediately.
Mhm.
And then all of a sudden, Ed's back in the band. So that was the quartet.
And then I had another tour. It's one thing, Roy would not fire you if you had something else going on. He might give you some grief about it. Now, to Dave's point about technology and no YouTube, no email, none of this stuff was going on then. So the rehearsals at Roy's house became that much more a fountain of knowledge, of excitement, a, a, an event. We drive out to Roy's and we'd start feeling it as we got there. This is Roy Haynes we're playing with. This is the real deal. This man is jazz history, and we're going to share notes with him. And he would in a way want to put us on his level. Like, no, guys, we're all just playing here. Sorry, I haven't been playing lately, so forgive me. And he proceeds to just burn us to the ground, right? He'd make food. Sorry, guys, I haven't hit the drums in a long time, and we'd be sitting there like, we play amazing, right? So he'd make food, we'd hang around, he'd make us feel very comfortable, very welcome, very homey. He was like a father to us in a lot of time. But he minced no words about anything. He was so quick, and he was so, like, you would say anything. He's as quick as he is with the drums. He's quick with his mouth, quick with his wit. Anytime I would call him, he's like, what are you doing? Okay, yeah. Why are you calling me? What do you got? You got something to say? Oh, if you weren't right on it, he would be on you like you wouldn't believe. When I first joined the band, he would always be like, you got something to say? But that's how he is musically as well. And he would stop us sometimes and say, because at the time I was playing with Clifford Jordan and Vernell Fournier was the drummer. So for me to switch from Vernell to Roy was a great challenge, but it was also a great, wealth of knowledge, both gentlemen, right? But I would be playing a certain way. He'd go, Bob, hit the drums. What are you doing? This isn't Clifford Jordan. He goes, you got to dance with me. Come on, let's play. He would like me to break up the time. He'd like me to play stuff with him. He'd always like us to hit the and in fours. He'd always had certain little things that he would do. There's events that happened during the band where, personal things may happen to me or Dave or somebody, and he would let us know to not bring that to the band. Saying, you're playing with me tonight. I'm Roy effing Haynes. I'm the swing drum. You better play tonight. This is the real thing. This is the real business. We're going to play tonight, and we're going to make history tonight every time we play. And he was like, and he did that. He didn't have to say it.
Yeah.
He did every night. He never came and didn't give every bit of all of his history of jazz every time he played. And it took a good amount of time before we could relinquish the excitement of playing with him and then actually play music. He wanted to make us comfortable. He wanted us to bring out our music, whatever we felt that was appropriate. And he wanted you to have your own identity. He wasn't, I'd say Art Blakey had a band then, Elvin Jones had a band, and different guys, in hindsight, looking at Roy Haynes' band, he really wanted us to be free. He wanted us to play. He wanted to create that kind of sound.
Let's say he was very open-minded. Like, what do you want to play? He would ask us rather than, here's the songs I want to work on today. Never happened. He would say, what do you guys got? And you had to sort of bring something to the table. Then he would have the charts that Chick Corea sent, or he'd say, did you ever play this tune? He would offer up suggestions, but he was very open. But as far as if you played the melody, if you played one wrong note, he would go back and say, like, do you know the words to the song? Or, you sure that's the way it goes? Coltrane made sure he knew the melodies and the words to all the songs, and McCoy was right there with the proper, one time I didn't know a tune that well, like I learned it out of the real book or something, but I was playing it fairly well, and but I didn't really know it really perfectly, or the subtle details. And he said I mean, he was careful never to insult you, but he would let you know in certain terms. And he said, "Oh, it sounds like you learned that from some book." And I was like, I felt so bad, but I knew exactly what he meant. So then I went
Yeah.
home, pulled out every version of the song I could find, and then the next time we went back, and the first song I picked was that song,
Yeah.
can we
Yeah.
try that one again? And Roy's like, "Oh, sure." And then we tried it, and then you could just see his expression, like, okay, Dave did his homework.
Yeah.
If one wrong note, Roy would hear it, and then, I mean, he knew the words to everything because he worked with all the singers like Sarah
Right.
Vaughan
Sarah
and stuff.
Vaughan. Yeah.
But like, he even knew the words to like Beatles songs, pop songs, songs by the Doors. He used to recite "Light My
Yeah.
Fire" and
You
stuff.
gotta know when to hold it and stuff like right, exactly.
The
Right.
Gambler.
The
The
Kenny
Gambler.
Rogers.
We would sing
Yeah,
that sometimes at the end of a he would sing
right.
that. It made that one live at Scholars record. But
Oh, that's right.
sometimes we would sing that Yusef Lateef song at the end of gigs, and we'd walk off the bandstand. What was that? Was it like yum 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 yum? We'd sing
Na,
something
na,
and
na, 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 na. Right.
uh,
I think
That's
you might
right.
have. I wonder if you did that at Berkeley. This is ringing a bell now. Like, I think you guys did
Na,
sing
na,
something.
na,
Now,
na,
now
na,
that you
na, na,
mention
funny.
it.
I was speaking to Ralph a few weeks ago when Roy passed away, and he goes, "Man, that was the tightest band I ever played in my life."
Hmm.
For me, think back then, Roy played the melody a certain way, every time, like he played it, and he had certain little cues, but the way with the length of the note, the short, the long, the way he would frame it, we were trying to emulate that. Ba 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 da 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 da. It's
Right.
like it would have to be a certain way that and I remember putting gut strings on my bass, and I went out to his house and played. I'm like, these strings aren't tight enough to play with Roy. I didn't feel like we could have the same kind of, long short note wise, And
Hmm.
Dave and I subsequently played with a lot of bands together after that, which is fantastic for me. But I found this thing on YouTube recently where we were playing with Bob Berg, and I was listening to the long and short of the notes that we were playing on that ostinato, and it's perfectly together. Like my notes not longer than yours are not longer than mine, but the years that we played together.
David mentioned Trinkle Tinkle and just you're singing like different
Yeah,
parts of songs and stuff, and I'm hearing like
right.
Green Chimneys was another one that he loved,
Sure. A
where
lot of
there's
monk.
just this even the way he played tunes like Summer Night, where like he would give them his rhythmic thing, like there was a certain definition, and a lot of rhythmic richness, like especially in the monk tunes, where you could like kind of hit these things that he would like in Trinkle Tinkle that he would always do.
Right.
Um,
Well, yeah.
and then you mentioned Psalm, also the Chick Corea tune. That also made me want to just mention repertoire. He was just um, he was really good at it, like just picking stuff that not everyone else was playing. That was
Right.
my impression. So that must have
Yeah.
been really kind of cool to just have everything be so fresh all the time.
Him and Chick had this, spiritual, musical connection. So some of the stuff was kind of coming from Chick as far as the compositions, like Mirror, 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 Mirror. We did Bud Powell. I think we did Bud Powell before Chick even did the Bud Powell tribute. I think
The
that
Bud
came
Powell
later,
tune,
but
yeah, the tune
I
Bud Powell. I
maybe,
love
yeah,
that
the
tune.
tune
Yep.
Bud Powell. So those tunes were, like I said, Chick was sending those songs uh, in the mail, but actually, if you listen to the recordings, Roy would when Roy played with his band with us, he would actually put he would do it differently than he would play it with Chick,
I
and
see.
we would add our stuff to it. It would sound like Roy Haynes'
Right.
arrangement. It was
Right.
our arrangement. We would add little rhythmic things. I mean, we could, even if we did a blues like by Charlie Parker, the Big Bo 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 Bo.
Yeah,
Which
the
one is that?
Bigfoot.
That's
Bigfoot.
Bigfoot. Even if we did Bigfoot, it would be, I mean, you could hear it when Roy played with Bird.
Right.
Roy has a way of taking any tune and just playing the melody so confident, and he's always playing the melody on the bass drum or one of the limbs. And he was always my favorite drummer with Charlie Parker anyway. So
Right.
he takes that magic and puts it on any tune So even if it's a tune we never played before, and we just picked a tune out of the air, and we did that a lot, right, Ed? We just pick a tune out of the air, whatever anyone wanted to play. But we had all these like little rhythmic cues that
Yeah.
Roy would do that we knew, okay, he's going to do this here. And then there was a while where he did like tons of stop time. Like every
Right.
other tune would have some, Roy would do stop time. And then when I think everybody's going to come back in on the piano solo, they'd leave me out there, and then I'd have to go into
Or
a
his
solo
thing.
piano thing.
If he wanted to do an and of three, he would go like this. We go, bah, bah, he'd have different signals. Or there was one where I think it might have been Psalm or one of the tunes of the, I might come in a little, I'm gonna watch me, because I'm gonna hold it. I'm gonna do a little delayed Babette. And
Right.
then bam, and he would hit it and he'd wait and we'd watch him. But Babette was some girl I was dating. Like, Babette, 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 like
Uh,
it's he's like,
yeah.
I might play delayed Babette, so watch out. So we'd watch him for that. But one time
Right.
we're big and we play Bigfoot, then we play Footprints, and then we play uh, another blues. And the fourth tune comes along, and I was whispering, I was like, "Hey, Roy, we just played three blues." And he picked another blues. He's like, "What do you mean?" I said, "This is another blues." He goes, then he gets on the microphone. He's like, "Well, Ed Howard wants to tell me what to play now." I mean, early on, he would light the audience, and he would let us have it so much. Yeah, we definitely had an affection for each other. We loved each other, and Roy treated it as his family. And when we went to the funeral and went to the wake, it was family. I knew Marcus when he was a little kid in a little suit coming in with Leslie, and I knew Graham and Craig since they were young too. And he was my musical father. He was our musical father, but he loved us and he cared about us a lot. Jazz music, this history of the music is the folk music, and it's conveyed through playing with people. It's conveyed through the word, the story, the music, the quarter note, everything that he's about. He shared with us, and that's in us, and we can't help that, whether we like it or not. It is. We were blessed enough to have shared that time with him. I remember later in life, I was playing with Victor Lewis, and he's like, "Man, I can feel it in my cymbal that you played with Roy Haynes. It's in us. Never down. Like you call his house, what's up, Roy? Hey, man, I'm riding my bike. I'm having a little salad. About like this kind of positivity that if you're around that a lot, it's not only that, it's the level of music you play with. I mean, it is so inspiring and so like it makes you just want to live. It makes you want to play. It
Yeah.
makes you,
I remember I played one time. I was playing a record date, and it was with Peter Erskine, and he just said, "You have that." I think it was a compliment. He said, "Oh, you have that. You have that Roy. That's real jazz. You have that Roy Haynes time." And I was just so
yeah,
fortunate to be able to learn and experience that Roy Haynes time. I mean, that's the greatest compliment I can. So I
Yeah.
feel very, very honored and very fortunate to just with the association.
Amazing. Amazing.
Yeah.